morning, afternoon, evening, everyone, wherever you are in this beautiful world. Officially, we are launching finally our global summit, the intersection of climate, AI, and humanity. I am so excited to be here with you, all of you around the world, because this can be a tipping point moment, a positive one for us to tackle the climate SDG sooner and then all the other SDGs. I am Christina Imre, the founder of Tech Leadership Lab and your moderator for this first panel. I just want you to know that this is an intersection of technology, of innovation, of leadership, and humanity. And we have the chance today, with the help of technology and together with the right type of leadership and the solutions that we have today at our level and in our disposal, like AI, can be something that might be a game changer for the situation and especially the existential crisis we are all in today. And so I have a question for you. What if we have the solutions, we have the tools, and we have the right people, but we just need to unite to tell the common story, the united global story of what we need to do and start acting in a global way, in a human way, where we are all in this together. Because this is our aim at Tech Leadership Lab, and our ambition is high. Our ambition is basically to create an impact. We are impact amplifiers of those voices and entities around the world who are here to make the difference, because we are fighting the same fight, we are here for the same reasons, and we want to leave a legacy, a better future for our children and the future generations. And so for this kind of impact, I am urging you to be here, to share our event everywhere, to join our discussions, because we are monitoring the chat, and let's create a consensus document by the end of this intersection of climate, AI, and humanity summit that we prepared for you, that will be placed in front of decision makers and policymakers around the world. And this is so crucial for us to understand that the choice is ours, the story we will write and believe collectively is ours, and we have a choice. And this is the pinnacle, a start that we might do together. So during the 3 days, you will be part of 6 very well thought panels with amazing global experts, policymakers, speakers who truly are in this game on the long term to solve our human existential problems. Every panel will bring different expertise to the table. We will have different views, multiple perspectives, with the focus on finding solutions, starting with what's real and urgent to be done first in climate, because this is such a huge question we will answer today. And a couple of housekeeping just for you to know. During the 3 days, we will have 6 panels. This is our first panel. Every session will have 2 hours with a 15 minutes video important break in the middle, where we encourage you to have some fun at our fun page. It is techleadershiplab.org/fun zone. There you also have a quiz that will reveal where you are in the journey of climate and what you need to do more. You can also earn an amazing badge about this. And at the end, we will monitor the chat and we'll ask your question. If we cannot live, we will put it together and we will discuss it as a team. And if it's relevant, you have a chance to also be featured on our events or be part of the consensus document. And finally, all the participants here are voluntary, so please be respectful and supportive for them volunteering their time to find solutions for our pressing problems. And with that said, let's launch officially our amazing summit, where I prepared the presentations for the first speakers and experts we have here today. And allow me to start with introducing them as they should, with all the respect that they deserve. I will start with Professor Dr. Susan Crumdack from Harriet Watt University. She is a professor in mechanical engineering and chair in energy transition engineering. She has 15 years of experience in energy systems engineering, including renewable energy, and a lot of research background in sustainable energy like solar, wind, biofuels, bioenergy, hydrogen, geothermal, carbon capture, building energy efficiency. She is currently also the research director at Island Centre for Net Zero in Scotland, and this is a unique partnership effort to manage the transition to low carbon energy across the economy of the three Scotland islands, Orkney, Shetland, and the Hebrides. I hope I pronounced that correctly. And she loves a good Viennetta. That's very important. Our second guest is Ahmed Larous, and he is now celebrating Ramadan. Happy Ramadan, Ahmed, to you. And I
Thank you.
want to add, you also invented and initiated and organized the Ramadan festival, the first one in the Western world. He is a distinguished entrepreneur, impact investor, and a powerful advocate for climate innovation. And it's at the forefront of catalyzing sustainable change through clean tech. With a rich background spanning entrepreneurship, lecturing in business studies, and spearheading initiatives like Bridges and Climate Launchpad Morocco, Ahmed is dedicated to nurturing a global ecosystem that embraces clean tech solutions. His life is spinning between two continents, especially the Netherlands and Morocco, and he is all about impact entrepreneurship, clean tech, and green business ecosystem. We will continue with Richard James McCowan. He is a biofuturist and the founder of Biomimicry Innovation Lab to develop regenerative innovations fit for the 21st century challenges. Richard brings nature and design into equation as an internationally renowned expert speaker and advisor on biomimicry, innovation, and sustainability. Known for his investigative acumen as a reality checker, distilling genuine, impactful solutions from fleeting trends, he is very, very important to any panel. He's also an award-winning multidisciplinary designer working on urbanism, manufacturing, agricultural projects, developing new models of innovation to reduce costs and improve efficiency. And he studied on 3 continents and loves chocolate and science fiction. And now we have with us lawyer Divya Dwivedi. She is a result-driven engineer and MBA turned lawyer with experience in ensuring the legal aspect of commercial transactions in the corporate world involving fields like AI, IoT, data privacy, IPR, meaning patent drafting, patents, trademark filing, copywriting, maintenance, IP portfolio management, company law, technology law, cyber forensics, environmental compliances, gender justice, legal due diligence, constitutional aspect of commercial laws for businesses, legal and entrepreneurial perspectives. She is a social spiritual engineer who volunteers her time to help us transition sooner to an ethical AI that can impact the world and solve inequalities. And she loves chess, Sudoku, books, and understands the power of sleeping. And last but not least, Yangbo Tu, who is the current Chief Partnership Officer at Innovo, but he navigated through many functions of this company and outside, from CTO to CEO. And he's all about profitable net zero partnerships. And that's the element he brings into the equation about how big companies can achieve zero waste by the early 2030s while being incentivized better with such a wonderful promise of profitability. Yangbo is also a former academic turned entrepreneur with a made in New York entrepreneurial spirit, always ready to create impact, and a notorious social business architect in sustainability, and he is known as a connector of connectors, convener of conveners, and facilitator of facilitators. He loves a good cheese board, ideally locally sourced. And with that said, you can see already how amazing speakers we are having today to discuss what's important and urgent in climate, what we should do next. And our speakers will answer from their perspective and experience crucial aspects, the way they see the problem tackled. And I will want to invite our first speaker to start and especially introduce us in transition engineering. Professor, please join us.
Hello.
Hello, hello. And
all right, the question we were asked to think about was what are the innovative solutions and technologies that hold the most promise for rapid action, right? And I think I've been asking that question for 40 years, really. And it was about 20 years ago when I think I realized that sustainability had actually been going totally the wrong direction. Now let me explain that for a minute. You can work on sustainable things and you can work on sustainable goals, but how do we keep getting less sustainable while we're doing that? And what occurred to me, because I was reading a really interesting article about the beginning of safety engineering in 1911, and as you keep digging into occupational and health safety, food safety, mechanical engineering safety, boilers blowing up, just anything, what you see is that the new technology that you already have becomes profitable and it gets employed in technological enterprises and it brings benefits to people and it grows the economy and brings prosperity and it runs way ahead of our ability to keep ourselves safe from it. And so we get disasters that just keep piling up and they get worse and worse and people get more and more worried, like, oh my God, another 140 people died today in the mine, right? It just gets worse and worse. And in historical terms, like us looking back, we think, oh, we fixed that. But in truth, nobody was going to fix it because it was profitable and it was legal and people were calling on the government to do something, but the government's not going to shut down an economically great thing that's doing great things and the economy's growing. And so what we have is this time where the problems are obvious. They're right in your face. And yet you can't change anything. And that's where we are now. And so while we say sustainability and we hope for technology solutions, what we haven't done is changed our mind. And that change of mind that happens every time over the past 2 centuries when we're on a trajectory of just worse and worse and worse disasters, and somehow it shifts to where those disasters go down and now things are survivable, is that we reframe what's wrong as something that's unacceptable to somebody, right? It's unacceptable to everyone, but there's somebody to whom that unacceptability looks the right way around. So safety is not the work of making things safe. It's the work of identifying honestly what's not safe and changing whatever already works, whatever is already profitable, so that the unsafe thing doesn't happen. You reduce risk, you manage exposure, you don't accept casualty, right? So this is what's happened over and over and over, is reframing the problem, not as being a problem, but as something that's not acceptable anymore. So right now we're starting to get to that point with sustainability where we're starting to see that it's not that sustainability is the thing that we want. It's that unsustainability is the thing that's not acceptable. And once you reframe that way, which is what I did 20 years ago, then you absolutely see that there is no new innovative solution to the problem that you are not facing honestly. Once you face the problem honestly, which is that we are doing unsustainable things, and those things are killing us, they're killing half of the biology on this planet, and they're definitely screwing up the future, then you focus on changing the unsustainable things. And once you start doing that, then you start doing what happened every time in past, where somebody just sees that a little bit different. And what happens is that everybody can see it that way. It's obvious. And so you get a very quick development of the counterfactual to that we have to keep doing what we're doing. We're slaves to it. We can't change it because the economy would collapse. And we start going, oh, we actually can change that. So that's what transition engineering is. It's the work of starting first with identifying honestly what is unsustainable, and then doing the work of changing the existing systems to downshift that unsustainable activity to a survivable level. Because unsustainability means you're not going to survive, right? It means there's an end that's coming. And that's a really different thing than saying we want a little more sustainable something. So what is it that happens now that really means that there's a future we can send our kids to and our grandkids to? Well, I'll tell you what it is. It's the same thing that has always happened in every other case where our technology goodness ran away with our ability to manage the risks of that technology. And it is the beginning of a university program. There will be the first food safety program. There'll be the first fire safety program. There'll be the first program where academically you sit down and you work through how to understand the problem in this new way, and then what the methods and processes are for doing that change work in a profitable and beneficial way. All right. So that is the work that I would invite everyone to think about. That's what we are working on at Heriot-Watt University, to be that first university with a transition engineering program. And just like every other one of these occurrences of a big shift in the world, those programs are always transdisciplinary because it's a whole complex system that you have to engineer the changes in. So I think I've answered the question there. Innovative solutions means a tweak to the thing that you already have so you can keep it fresh, keep it new, sell more of it. Invention means the thing that you don't see yet, but you know you got to have it. So I'm actually going to challenge that idea of innovative solutions and move to there's something that must exist that doesn't now exist. That's where invention is. And look it up. Transition engineering is that new thing. I'll pass on to the next person.
Thank you so much, Susan.
Sure.
And I must tell you that it was so interesting for me to study a little bit, because if I would start all over, I believe that transition engineering would be one of those domains that I would dig more myself into as a polymath. I learned so much, and also from your talks around the internet. And I can see that people are very, very interested also about learning what it is. And what it got me is that you are going in the past 100 years, let's say, and then you go into the future, and then you assess what we need to do for that future to come. And this is so, so interesting. So I encourage everyone to put questions, to study the work.
Let me just say, you said if I got to do it again, I would choose that. That's not how these transitions work. That's not how these big shifts work. The people who are experts in the existing systems are the only ones who can change them. So we already do have tens of thousands of transition engineers out there. They just haven't got together, got themselves the badge and said, guess what? I'm going to change stuff.
Yeah, this is a great point. Thank you for pinpointing this. And now we will move, before having an open discussion and also seeing what the audience wants us to answer, we will move the needle a little bit. And here, Ahmed Larousse from Climate Launchpad, Morocco. Please tell us your views on the topic.
And thank you for the other speakers and colleagues taking their time also to inspire us. One thing I really want to emphasize in here is the clean tech ecosystems, because I remember when I started doing this work, coming from as a social entrepreneur and being socially involved, but I never done anything with the climate. And most of the time, when you hear the word sustainability, it sounds something like an activism. It doesn't sound, very attractive, very sexy as something to work on. And after years of getting more in entrepreneurship and the climate and innovation involved, so I discovered that the world of the clean technology is one of the largest markets at the moment in the world, and it's increasing, and it's a combination of technology, of course, and innovation, and having an impact on the society, on the environment. So that's something that I want to emphasize a lot, because when I mention the word clean tech, even with the different leaders and working on the Ministry of Environment, especially when I was busy in Morocco last few years, uh, they will ask you, can you define the word clean tech? What does it mean? And a lot of people would think it's just clean energy, but it's broader than that. And EI is part of it, and all the technology revolution is part of it, and innovation is part of it. So when I was teaching at the here in Amsterdam at the university, one of the first thing I started with business studies with my students is to make them realize that there is a bigger market, a bigger business in the clean technology that you should focus on if you really want to be an entrepreneur. And a lot of people that would think, the traditional guys that would think, yeah, an entrepreneur is to make money, especially the young generation. They think if they want to build a company, is just go for money. What about building a company, making money, and having a greater impact on the environment and society? That's where clean tech is coming in, and that's what we try to realize, how important the education is, how important the awareness, or to combine the awareness of the climate change and entrepreneurship. If you combine them, they will give you a better, going to give us better solutions. So we try to change the mindset of the new entrepreneurs, the new startups, to think uh, differently about doing business. You can do business, but at the same time, you can have a greater impact. So, the last few years, I focused more on building this ecosystem, especially starting from Morocco, with the Climate Launchpad, which is the world largest clean tech and green business competition ideas. That started somewhere in the Netherlands, and I took that experience and I went with it to Morocco. We invested in it, and we fully financed it, because we believe that the new generation of startups, the new generation of entrepreneurs should learn how, that clean tech is the future, but at the same time they can have, they can build their business and their dream, at the same time having the impact. So coming back again to education is playing a very, very important role, because a lot of people, they don't even know what climate crisis is. They don't even know what sustainability is. They think it's more the activism if you do this. So also the clean tech definition, which is very important. I think I prepared some slides just to give you a definition of the clean tech. I don't know if we can see it, but if it's not in there, no worries. I can explain it. Yeah, is it something that goes by itself because it's new for me? But can I go
I can
to?
handle this. I can handle this. So
Oh
just
yeah,
go
can I
ahead.
go to the next slide and maybe
Of
next
course, of
one?
course. Yeah, or you just click on it.
Oh yeah, can see it. This is more the program where we are. But clean tech refers to innovative, sorry, goes back, innovative technologies and services that utilize renewable materials and energy sources while minimizing waste and environmental impact. It's very easy, actually. The challenge I always tell and ask other people is, just go to Google and ask yourself, what is the market size of clean tech industry? It's more than $300 billion a business, actually. And that's why it's very important. if we want to focus on the future and we want to have solutions, that's what the world is asking. The world is asking for a clean technology to save the planet. And when we know that the money is there, we know that the innovation is needed, and we know that we need a new business generation with another mindset. That's what we have to invest in. And the market is asking for it. The investors are asking for it. The government asking for it. So actually, it's something that we cannot deny anymore, and that we have to focus on in the future. So what we have done, maybe, well, I'll just give you some examples the of the certain ecosystems we will learn from, like the Dutch. I always give that example of the Dutch, where four people saying we're going to stop the sea, and and after 400 years they built the Netherlands under the sea level. So, and from that philosophy, we know that people in the past actually built built greater things, also with the technology. But the leadership is very important here, and the leadership should come not just from, you know, the governments or from COP 20 or 28, but it should also come from other institutions, and we have to collaborate together, you know, to make this actually work. Um, the another example also from the from what we actually should do more to answer the question is we have to create new ambassadors of the clean tech industry. And and I think maybe I will go back to the questions, of course, if there are any other questions afterwards. But I think the time is up.
This was very, very, very timely indeed. And thank you for that. So I would love to pass the baton to our next guest, who is Richard James McCowan. And I'm super, super curious about your way, because now we are just putting the little parts together, and then through a conversation, we will assemble everything. Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, hi everyone. Thank you very much for inviting me along. So I thought I'd define what we really do first. So I look to biomimicry, or I like using the phrase nature-inspired innovation. And that's really about taking inspiration from nature and solving human challenges. And it's really about delving into understanding, you know, the forms, functions, processes, and interactions that you find, and translating them across. Now, what the question that I really get interested in for tackling for this is actually cross-sector collaboration, because I find myself working with lots of different people, from sociologists to people working machine learning, remote sensing, you know, working with people on the ground, working with communities, indigenous communities specifically, looking into climate impact, delving into SDGs, biodiversity assessment, all around the world. And it's really about how can we bring these people together. Now, there's a really good book out there called Rebel Ideas by Matthew Said, and I'd recommend people to read this. And in the book, it's really about talking about having this purpose, everyone having the shared goal, but also bringing people together from different disciplines, but they've got slight overlapping skills. You don't want people from the same background. You know, it's like you don't want people from all the same law school or the same country working together necessarily, because you're going to end up with groupthink. It's the same thing when you're building these teams. You want to build in these specific teams as well, and have these you know, slightly overlapping skills, but not necessarily having one dominant driver there, because sometimes you can have the accountants taking over the engineers. So it's about, yeah, ensuring you don't have these skills. And one of the big things there as well is getting people, Susan picked up on this mindset shift. It's vitally important, getting people understanding from the beginning what you're wanting to achieve. You know, what are your challenges, your outcomes you're going to focus on. You know, because if not, you're just, you know, if you're not learning from your mistakes, you know, isn't that the definition of stupidity? Just going and repeating things over and over and over again. So it's really about doing this, and it's about, yeah, I think it's vitally important. What we find is always building in this common language, getting people understanding. Now, it can be quite challenging when you're dealing with looking at, you know, evolutionary biology and ecology, of actually understanding what it means, but getting the language across. And for me, instead of going amazing, nature is wonderful, which it is, it's fascinating. My kids love being out in nature. More about exploring the outcomes we can get. Not everything in nature can be translated across, but if you delve into certain areas of understanding, there's a great research paper there by one of my advisory board called "The Survival of the Cheapest." And he now currently works part-time at Heriot-Watt. He's a retired professor. And this is about understanding in the natural world, generally energy is very hard to come by, and so is materials or substances. So it's about understanding these things working together. And I find this a fascinating way of delving into it, because it gets me start thinking about how do we build these teams together, aiming for these kind of disruptive problems. But the other key area I've found as well, it's not always about high-tech solutions. So some of the people will be listening thinking, well, you got it if you're talking about tech. Well, actually, no, because before we got here, we were trying to figure out how Ahmed could actually improve the lighting so you can see him better. And we were looking at all these different ways, and all he had to do is turn his chair around, which sometimes it doesn't have to be tech for tech's sake, because that's just a gadget. That's putting widgets together, and the more you have, the more likelihood of them breaking. So this leads me into my next point, is when you start looking into large scale developments, it's actually better to start looking at building in, say, green infrastructure, but implementing that with your civil engineering projects as well. So you're having a mix of both together. Not one's better than the other, but actually there's research showing that actually combining them together works. We're not going to go back to living in the Stone Age. AI is here, but you can actually use that as a benefit as well. I really like seeing what's actually coming out from this collaboration aspect of what's happening in the UK's version of DARPA called ARIA, Advanced Research and Invention Agency. And what you're finding is actually one of the areas they're looking at is nature computes better. Now, it's a bit of a tagline there. It's good for a hashtag. But what they're looking at is massive growth of machine learning. We're using more and more processing power. Can we actually look to swarms, look at things like insects, and for processing? So instead of looking at example of like something like DeepMind that's replicating the human brain, why not look to insects, do something just as complex and solve them as a swarm? And that's allowing for low computing power, but also solving these complex problems. And there's a lot of companies popping up both in the US, the UK, and across in Asia as well that are exploring these areas. That can then lead into new types of materials as well. So you get people, Google DeepMind, if we go back to them, did discover 800 new types of crystals that can potentially lead to new materials by using AI to start analyzing different ways materials are built. And that's allowing us to then speed up the process of developing these new materials. But the big challenge there for the collaboration is at each stage of how do we get these to market? Because a lot of new biomaterials, if we're needing them for semiconductors, they need to go through the scaling, understanding how do you deliver them, because there's lots and lots of biomaterials out there that companies they're going to fail. It's natural. It's not a negative thing that these companies, startups collapse. It's just part and parcel of it, because not everybody, it could be internal issues, not too far ahead of the game because there's not the supporting technologies around them. And it allows, so other companies coming up will learn from this and be able to build on the scaling challenges we've had before. And so back to the point, really, and the way I tend to work is looking at the longer term. I like looking at stuff coming out now. If you're kind of taking, say, climate tech or deep tech, it's really understanding that a lot of the stuff coming out of universities or research labs, you're looking at 15, 20 years into the future here. So a lot of the time I'm looking at what jobs are coming out. So companies currently recruiting, what universities are developing, research labs. Also, where government's putting their money as well. Where's the research focus? Because that's going to impact where the investors are putting their money as well. So I'd highly recommend people read this recent article, or articles actually in the Financial Times, looking at Europe's startup hubs. And the same as Ahmed was mentioning about the climate hubs that he's part of, is actually looking at how they're working. And it's not just the solution. A lot of hubs these days are actually bringing people together to kind of say, right, what outcomes, what challenges can we focus on, and focus that way instead of coming up with a novel solution and almost hoping you can find a market. So I'm seeing this as a better way of kind of bringing people together to actually make a bigger impact for actually solving climate solutions, if we can solve them all. Because one of the issues that we really have should we start focusing on more about developing climate adaptation solutions as well? Because one of the things is, we talk about politics, but most of Donald Trump's golf courses are all next to the sea, when they're building walls around them to protect them from that. It's probably the only decent wall he's going to get built. But the point is we have to adapt. We are looking at changes in the UK example. We're developing a lot more passive houses, but those passive houses are generally being developed for our climate now. But what in 20 years' time? The way my city, is predicted to have a climate like the Mediterranean, but these houses then going to have to get retrofitted again. My house where I live was built in the 1850s, so we've got an issue of how to keep this cool when it was built to retain heat. So we're looking at all these things about really focusing down and actually how do we retrofit our current building stock instead of building new? Is there low-tech solutions we can learn from warmer climates? Areas that we're working on now. So it's looking at in the Middle East and Southern Asia, and actually understanding and building these together and start learning, because a lot of the time it's just people really just wanting to do tech for tech's sake. And I think sometimes it's just take a step back and see if there's simpler solutions out there, and just learning from people across different sectors and learning the insights from everywhere. So thank you.
Thank you, Richard. And you pinpointed so many important aspects, and climate adaptation and resilience is one of those aspects that we will talk about in a full panel tomorrow for those who are here, and we invite everyone to join. I love this element of going back in the past and then in the future, and your work is so interconnected. I'm waiting for our debate a little bit later. And now we move on to Advocate Divya. Please join us. And I'm so curious about how you will approach this, because you do have a very comprehensive experience around AI, law, and also social injustice and inequality. And I would love to hear your voice here, because I know that we discussed this from multiple aspects, and I know you prepared for this. So let's see what you have for us.
Thank you for the invitation. Namaste from India. And I'm absolutely mesmerized by the points raised by my previous speakers, and I hope I'm properly audible. There is so much to say around what they have said, but I would like to add a couple of points to what they have said with a legal perspective, of course. My first focus point was about to talk related to climate change and how we are going to find effective ways or effective measures or critical steps in order to prioritize how to achieve the climate SDG goals in shorter time frame. I don't know whether that is possible or not, but from my understanding, my point of view, I would prefer to say that it will be a little bit much faster or a little bit much easier if we start thinking about gender equality. Why I'm saying that? Because I talk about agricultural parity as well. When women are working, they are more than 55 to 63% who are working in agriculture, rather than compared to men who are 29% only. And it's a data provided by UN itself. There are like 102 men for 100 women, so we're already at 50%. Our focus should be not only to find comprehensive ways or easy ways in order to solve this problem. We have to find the core issue related to this. That is, once you have involved everyone, especially all genders, it will become a little bit of a big momentum, I would say. But I do understand they're not all the laws, all international laws are the same platform, but this will also get resolved if we have such kind of involvement from all spheres of life. We, as I'm from India here, we literally pray because they are God to us. Plant, climate, environment, water, air, everything is, we pray as if they give everything to us, because we grow on soil, we need water for in order to make sure that agriculture is better. We are an agriculture based country. It is 67% that our work is around agriculture. So we have to focus on making sure that we have something left for our generations to come. That being said, I was listening to everyone's argument and pointers which they were talking. Like Professor Susan said, change of mind is happening, but that is taking a lot of time. The change is taking very slowly. How to involve more people in order to bring in that particular change, be it in sense of transition engineering or be it in sense of legal aspects, because we don't want to force everything. There should be no forcing, it should be adapting. People should be open to adapting those changes. They should be open to the kind of conversation which we are happening. This conversation, it will go places. Reason being, we are having versatile ideas, we are bringing it on one platform. This is another way of bringing change a little faster, which hopefully is the reason why we all are here. Then Dr. Ahmed was talking about clean tech. Clean tech is actually becoming very important. I accept that. But how are you making tech clean? That is another issue. And that development of tech is based on a lot of infrastructure. Where is that infrastructure getting disposed once it has been already used? That also becomes a very important point, because we as humans, we are manufacturing a lot of data. For that, for saving those data, we have a lot of infrastructure to build. That infrastructure again is consuming climate. That climate, how are we disposing it, becomes another aspect. So clean tech definitely is the requirement, but how clean we are doing it in the legal realm is also very important, because obviously not everybody accepts that debris is ours or we have to clean it, because it's not an easy process. Again, environment is getting affected, be it ocean environment, be it our environment where we breathe, we take our survival to the fullest. Then I came to Richard's point where he was talking about biomimicry, and my brain went to neurorights. Although biomimicry and everything, it helps us as humans, it is ethical challenge also. When we are supporting humans with all these points, still we are using a lot of infrastructure. Again, environment comes into picture. Are we really taking care of the environment in a proper manner? Are we developing tech in such a manner which helps us take care of the environment as well as our elderlies and children? That comes to my mind. And why I talked about neurorights here is because when we are collecting data in relation to all these aspects, are we really mindful of how we are using that particular data, the kind of privacy issues which are arising all over the world, not only one country, it's practically universal. So all of these points are so important, and obviously we have to involve gender to this, because unless women also are equally in the workforce, that other perspective will not be here. As I was reading that in entry level workers, there are only 29.4% women. It is a Harvard study, if I'm not wrong. Then even as VPs, there are like 17.8% only. So how are you getting the other perspective as well? So we have to understand that other aspect of understanding of a woman's perspective, of a man's perspective also should be there. So gender parity, gender equality has become a very important question. It has to be raised. I always try and bring it in terms of understanding how technology is non-discriminatory, how much gender equal we are when it comes to tech understanding, how ethical we are, how much mindful we are about the progresses that we are doing right now in terms of human sustainability. How is that going to take care? Then obviously, as we were discussing with Christina, it was about how AI and humanity works. So practically, I have been working in all those professional areas, and I saw one lagging thing is we are not that open as humans to be very inclusive. Unless we become very inclusive and try and involve all the communities, all the genders, or everyone on the same platform, it won't be that easy. If we have to save humanity, first we have to become connected humans, much more than the only in parts. We are doing in parts. The moment that connection will establish, That connection will in itself help us come back to this particular aspect of making the environment or the society or the climate very, very human friendly, because we are really misusing this particular whole thing. Clean energy has become a requirement. But for clean energy, what is the aspect of the disposal of that clean energy? There was a lot of talk about solar panels. There is a lot of use, but then how are you going to get it disposed? So whenever you talk to the environmentalist, you will get that aspect as well. I really wish to talk a lot around legal realm, legal aspects of all these, because tech ethics is one of the topics which is absolutely important. When you are developing any technology, you are making it around humans. You are trying to make sure that it is helping us. It has to be ethical and moral as well. At the same time, how are we trying to do that? I really hope that I am making some sense while I'm talking about this, because all this was coming to my mind and I had something else prepared. But when I listened to such esteemed speakers, I thought that I have to connect those things with legal understanding. I may have or may not have. So thank you again for bringing me here and letting me express myself or what I think about these topics or these discussions which we are having. And this is one of the most welcome discussions that we need today. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Christina.
Thank you so much, Divya. And I'm so happy that you will also be part of our consensus panel draft, because having this legal background also as a Supreme Court judge and the aspect of AI, it's so crucial. And I don't want to become overwhelmed that, wow, we have so many little details to tackle, because I know that there is always a way. And today we have technology to help us, and we need to see the future in a positive way, but also in a constructive way. So that's why our panel is so crucial. Please add your comments and questions inside the chat. Send people our way. Share this on all of your social media channels, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, wherever you have your network, because we want this discussion and all the findings to go everywhere in the world, and we will do everything we can in a way that will reach decision makers and policymakers around the world. We can find ways. I am very sure that we can find ways, and there are the solutions out there. We just discovered with Tech Leadership Lab during the last months, searching and researching, and we see that the information, it's not available to everyone. And it's one of those things that we need to tackle very quickly in order to not just discuss, okay, what's real and urgent, what are the steps, okay, let's do the steps, but the population also need to understand why we do those steps and where we are in climate and on this long journey that is ahead of us that can be done if we are united. And we will finalize the sessions, the individual sessions with Yang Bodu, who I'm very happy to have. And let's see how profitability and net zero are connected, and what are your views on the topic, Yang Bo?
Oh, thank you very much, Christina, for the introduction there. And also, it's a really good way to synthesize all of these perspectives shared earlier with a key focus on what needs to be done in the immediate term. So when I say immediate, this typically means what could be done in the next capital planning cycle, which is typically 4 or 5, maybe 6 years, which is roughly about how much time we have to have CO2 emissions if we follow the best available science, according to the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, or the IPCC, convened by the United Nations. So several things is, if you're working on any type of climate technology or any clean tech right now, if it's still in the lab at this point, chances are you're probably not going to be able to make much of a conceivable dent on emissions till maybe 2030 at the earliest, but more likely well into 2030s. So if you really want to start moving emissions down in a rather dramatic way in the next 5 or 6 years, then whatever technology you're deploying, it must better be on the market right now, or at least have a commercially viable prototype available. And secondly is that you must consider what would be the overall impact, not just on the environmental side, but the much broader economic and social side, because that is what is going to provide you the political will that you're going to need. You're absolutely going to need to be able to achieve whatever emission targets you're going after. Since if you're just cutting emissions and it's about shutting down heavy industries without really any viable alternatives that can reach scale in the same amount of time, then you're going to get a lot of pushback on that. And chances are it's probably dead in the water, whatever policies or measures you're proposing, since it'll just affect so many people adversely. And when it comes to the actual technologies themselves, just do keep in mind that there's certain technologies, there's certain processes that will take at least 5 years, if not a decade or longer, to say switch to renewables, to electrify or such. And I'm not referring to things like electric vehicles or those. So those are pretty mature at this point. What I'm referring to more so are the heavy industrial processes like steel, cement, petrochemicals, all of those that right now they rely so heavily on process heat that there isn't going to be any viable alternative to using fossil fuels, at least for the next decade or so, until there are other methods that are much more mature, much better established. So the focus, and this is what my team behind Innovo focuses on, are looking at what are technologies that are commercially available right now. They may be small companies, but what are technologies that are available right now that can actually enable those heavy emitters like steel and cement without having to change how you manufacture these products? That we're going to need plenty of steel, plenty of cement, because of course, as you well know, the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, we have sustainable cities, we have infrastructure, we have clean energy needs, clean water needs, all of those. So all of those would require pretty heavy material throughput. So steel, cement, any type of building material, no question about any of that. But then how might we make those not just zero carbon, but also profitable to transition? And let's take a cue from the Industrial Revolution from over a century and a half ago. And it wasn't because of these conference of parties, for example, that there is a switch from burning wood to burning coal. And in fact, the benefit, at least here in the United States, was that that was roughly the moment that U.S. forests started recovering, was actually the switch from wood to coal. So there were, in fact, environmental benefits of that, of course. But that aside, it was because it was more profitable. So we can position clean technology as a profitable alternative that you're right now still, it's improving, but still so much of the climate narrative is about scarcity, sacrifice, degrowth. If we flip that narrative towards one of abundance, opportunity, and prosperity, then it becomes much more sellable on, well, not just the economic, but especially in terms of harnessing a political will that's necessary. So if you can consider that what are really CO2 emissions here, it's really a waste product. That's what it is. It's a waste product. If you're just venting out the atmosphere, then it's actually resources that are underutilized. So start thinking of that as an asset that if you convert using things like algae or other processes. There are many different companies out there working on this, and some are actually commercially in operation now. That for many of those is you turn that waste, that are CO2 emissions right now, into something that's valuable. Think biofertilizer that you can use to restore soil. For example, much of the northern Mediterranean degraded for millennia through agriculture. If you're able to restore the agricultural productivity of those lands, then of course there's a benefit on food security. Then more immediately, there's fish and animal feed. If you can replace all of the land that has to be cleared, especially in tropical areas, land has to be cleared to grow soya or other animal feed, and replace those sources with algae that digest CO2 from steel, cement, petrochemicals plants. Well, not only are you able to conserve or preserve those lands, but you're also cutting CO2 emissions by nearly 2 billion or 2 gigatons annually. And then in small volumes, even in small volumes, you can make it very profitably nutraceuticals like omega-3 without having to harvest fish or krill for extraction and such. So consider what are some valuable products. How can you just harness your time and talent together to turn that trash, as we say? It could be solid waste. It could also be gaseous waste like CO2, turn trash into treasure, literally speaking. So, and where we're focused on as a team, just as we're closing out here, where we are currently focused on as a team is that we are actually bring on board team members left and right, and we operate natively remote, operate on all continents across 18 time zones. So if for any of you watching, any of you interested in engaging on actually turning this CO2, this waste, into something of value, into treasure, as we say, then more than happy to engage. Like we honestly right now, there's no talent is going to waste here. So if if any of you are willing to contribute this, and of course, because it's profitable, it's going to be remunerative as well, because really there shouldn't be any conflict between fulfilling your personal financial goals and doing good for the world, obviously, if we're to make this something that is genuinely sustainable. So if that's something that really impels you, happy to engage on all that. And as we're nearing the top of hour, thank you again, Christina and Carlos, for putting this together. And thanks, everyone, for their insights. So looking forward to engaging in the discussion after the 15-minute break.
We are at the top of the hour. Thank you all. You are just like perfect with your presentations. I was studying everything and reading the comments. Very, very interesting questions. People see things differently or the same as you. So it will be a very, very interesting debate on the second half, because I saw during the conversation some of you were agreeing with things that were said, some not. And this is the way we need to consider, because it's a consensus what we are aiming to achieve. It's basically something that you don't agree 100%, but you agree for the benefit of humankind, and you have the wisdom, the collective wisdom, to put things together in a way that you consider the future and the future of your children and the future generations ahead of everything else and egocentric, let's say, ideas or convictions or just desires. And so I believe that in the second half, and now the first 5 minutes, we are in the break, but I will continue to talk a little bit about what is going on here, because we also prepared for you a fun area where you have a quiz, and you can also earn a badge, a Climate Guardian badge, if you want to. The quiz, it's a very good revealing one, and maybe Carlos, please just share the link to that. And inside the chat or anywhere, because there you have this kind of insightful quiz we all completed, and even inside Tech Leadership Lab, because we are a team behind the scenes that we did this, and I congratulate the team effort. Everything was volunteer based. Imagine that in 6 weeks we created a global summit, because we wanted you to see that we are under the umbrella of emergency, where we cannot just wait again for the next fiscal year or for the next decision meetings or for the next COPs and so on, and everything is cool and good, but it is time for action. Now we need good decisions and actions in the same time, because we are in that kind of zone. And I believe that we can do that with the help of technology. And so it was a sign, the summit was also a sign that, hey, you can do it if you want to. You don't need to wait as long as others. You don't need to wait to create an event, because at the global scheme and the lower level, it is an example for decision makers. You can create big things in shorter amount of time if you create the right type of story. We are creatures of storytelling. Wars, empires are constructed and destroyed based on stories. We need to understand that. If we find a common story today that humanity can align on connecting us to the grid with the technologies we have and the different solutions around the world, just we, as how many we identified during these weeks, we can go net zero, we can be profitable, and we can have a good climate for our kids and the future generations without going to that 2 degrees or overboard and reaching that tipping point moment that in climate, it's not a good thing, it's a bad thing. And you want that avoided. And so I believe that we can find a voice, a common story by the end of the summit, at least at a small scale, to write a beautiful one. So go on our page, techleadershiplab.org during the break, or stay here and watch a couple of very interesting videos we prepared for you to watch around climate. So everything is educational here and also action driven. Or complete the quiz and see what type of games you can play, and just come here and write in the chat if you found anything interesting for you. We are reading every chat question, every comment. We will also centralize the most meaningful ones, and you might be part of our shows, you might be part of the document, you might be part of, we don't know yet, because we are creators in the moment of bringing the right information together. And so with that said, this is the launch of the first hour of our global summit, the intersection of climate, AI, and humanity. Please share it, come and be present live with us, because we have many, many things to discuss and solve. And maybe we will even write history together. Why not? It is the story we want to write. And it's up to us, a group of people who can align and then create a bigger group of people, and then we can move the needle ahead. And with that said, please enjoy the rest of the 11 minutes with a compilation of interesting videos we prepared for you.
Humans created the world in which we live, so humans can change it. Yes, the trends now are in a negative direction, but this is just a result of human decisions. We have the resources to deal with all the major problems of the world. You know, whether it's climate change, whether it's the rise of AI, whether it's the rise or resurgence of wars, we can deal with it. You know, if you think about, for instance, climate change and the ecological crisis, which worries a lot of young people, the most important thing to say about it, I think, is that, again, going back to government budgets, if you need to place a kind of price tag on it, how much would it cost humanity to prevent catastrophic climate change? The best estimates I could find is less than 5% of the global budget. If you think in terms of the budget of humanity, global GDP, less than 5% protects us. if we invest it in the right places, protects us from catastrophic climate change. Now, it's a huge amount of money, but it's still, in terms of budget, it's less than 5%. We can do that. Doesn't mean that we will do it. It's a question of motivation.
Well, the Nature Conservancy, many people have probably heard of because they're the biggest global conservation organization in the world. They work in 76 countries around the world, and they've got chapters in every state, and you might have taken a walk or a hike on one of their preserves in the past. But like so many other organizations, they're recognizing that if we don't fix climate change, we can't fix anything else. And so now the Nature Conservancy has climate change and biodiversity right at the very top of its global priorities, because they know that climate change is a threat multiplier. And that is what stands between us and a better future.
So, Kevin, if we're supposed to do something about it, why isn't it the industry's fault? All right, collective industries. They seem to be the biggest climate polluters out there. So what's up with that?
Well, it really is industry's fault. I mean, 90 corporations are responsible for 2/3 of heat-trapping gas emissions since the dawn of the industrial era. We need a system-wide solution, but systems are made up of people.
So a corporation, rather than thinking of them as a monolith, we think of them as comprised of people who have the same interest as we do.
Most of them do. There's always a few people who will put short-term profit over the long-term welfare of themselves, their children, their grandchildren, and the future of the human race as we know it.
Damn, how to make a corporate guy feel bad.
Yes.
That sounded like, lady, I'm just trying to make a buck. Okay.
Well, you know what, Neil, you actually hit it on the head. We've incentivized the people who run corporations to be extremely short-sighted, because their reward is in upping the stock price, which means at all costs they'll do whatever they need.
Catherine, we created the rules that sandbox that they're playing in, and now we're gonna complain that they're doing what the sandbox was intended to do.
Well, that's exactly it. That's why we need system-wide change.
Right.
It isn't enough to just change one thing over here, one thing over there, and it definitely isn't enough to just focus on our personal carbon footprint.
Right.
I mean, when we talk about climate action, most people immediately go to light bulbs and recycling, or diet and plug-in cars and solar panels. And, you know, don't get me wrong, I've done all of those things, but I've done the math. And even if all of us who are worried did everything we could to reduce our personal footprint, that wouldn't even be 20% of the problem. But then people say,
I mean,
okay,
of the solution. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, sorry, that wouldn't even be 20% of the solution, yes. It wouldn't even tackle 20% of the problem. So then people say, okay, so that means I can't do anything.
Right.
And my answer to that is no, you can do something. In fact, individual action is really the only way we have seen our industrialized society change in the past. But how we did it was not through personal action. It was through using our voices to advocate for change.
The three main messages that I would like to convey today in my presentation. First, the global warming is happening and accelerating. Each of the bar represent an increment of temperature with respect to a reference temperature that is the average between 1859 and 900. And we consider it as the temperature of the pre-industrial era. The humanity are the cause of this warming is our human activity, the increase of greenhouse gases emission that trap the heat in the Earth system and make the global warming increase of the temperature. And this is due to burning of fossil fuel, deforestation, land use, agriculture practices, waste management, and many more. And the third message is really the future depends on our action of today. Very low emissions means that we are able to stabilize the increase of temperature, or the very high emission scenarios where most probably our planet, a lot of part in our planet won't be actually habitable. Climate change is a global and intergenerational problem. A newborn today someone who is not responsible for the greenhouse gas emissions of the past is going to experience more heat and more climate change impacts in the future, in his or her life, rather than somebody who was born in the 50s or in the 80s.
The climate sensitivity determines how fast some regions of our planet will become uninhabitable if we continue pumping carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. The regions to be affected first and most severely are those around the equator in Central Africa, India and South America. That's some of the most densely populated regions of the world. The lives of the people who live there depend on that scientists get this number right. So we need this number to get a realistic idea of how fast we need to act. That the climate sensitivity might be considerably higher than most current policies assume is a big problem. Why wasn't this front page news? Well, quite possibly because no one read the paper. I didn't either. As of date, it's been cited a total of 13 times. I only know about this because my friend and colleague Tim Palmer wrote a comment for Nature magazine in which he drew attention to this result. He also asked other researchers to try and do similar tests with other models to see how well they perform with the short-term weather forecast. Unfortunately, no one listened to him. That includes me, because I have better things to do than read all of Tim's comments. Sorry, Tim. And in all honesty, I had pretty much forgotten about this. But then late last year, a new paper with Jim Hansen as lead author appeared, which reminded me of this. The new Hansen et al. Paper is a reanalysis of the historical climate data. In a nutshell, they claim that the historical data is compatible with the climate sensitivity of 4.8 plus minus 1.2 degrees Celsius. That agrees with the hot models. And if it was right, it'd invalidate the reason that climate scientists had to dismiss the models with the higher climate sensitivity. I don't want to withhold from you that some climate scientists have criticized the new Hansen et al. Paper. They have called it a worst-case scenario that is quite subjective and not justified by observations, model studies or literature. Though it isn't irrelevant to note that the person who said this is one of the authors of the previous paper that claimed the climate sensitivity from historical data is lower. I don't know who's right or wrong. But for me, the bottom line is that the possibility of a high climate sensitivity above 5 degrees Celsius can't be easily dismissed, especially not seeing how fast average temperatures have been rising in recent years. And that's really bad news, because if the climate sensitivity is indeed that high, then we have maybe 20 years or so until our economies collapse. And what's the point of being successful on YouTube if my pension savings will evaporate before I even retire?
Wind power covers over half of Denmark's usage, the highest per capita in the world. Mads Nippa is CEO of Ørsted, builder of offshore wind farms.
The way I would see the global race against time to fight climate change is that there is no competition. There are only partners on the green transformation. And we need to help each other. We need to share all technology innovation we have across the world with each other, not make it proprietary, because if one small country invents great solutions and it only helps a small country, then it won't help the world.
The green transition that is necessary is not about how can we go back to the Stone Age or anything. The green transition is the possibility to make new lives, new way of living that could be a lot better.
Hello everyone, we are back and in time. Everything works out very nicely and most of the viewers are here with us. And before I put everyone on stage to debate the second part, I will just do the housekeeping part this time again. So we prepared a 3 days summit, global summit for you, the intersection of climate, AI, and humanity, where we want to tackle what's important to be done today in climate to solve this important existential SDG that affects all the SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals. And also having AI today as a major player, as a tool, and together we can find ways in a way that what we have, it can be placed inside the story. And I hope you found very interesting correlations, ideas in the compilation of the video I prepared for you and the ideas that were shared there. I'm very, very curious to find out what all of our speakers are thinking about what was discussed in the first half. Everyone who is here, please comment, ask questions, because we monitor them. We will answer the most relevant ones and as we have the time, but we will consider them all for our future materials and moving further, because we have 6 panels during 3 days, and we hope to have you with us through these days, because this could be a stepping milestone for our future, collective future, and we are simulating an agreement, a consensus that might happen in our world quicker to solve what we have to do. All right. And I believe that we might start with a very, very interesting question to all of you, all the panelists who were here with us. And I believe that a very, very important question would be, what's the biggest impediment and the first step that you would like to be removed for us to solve the climate SDG? Also based on your profession, your experience, but also based on what you heard today. Who would want to start? Yes, Richard.
I'd say greed.
Develop.
Yeah. A lot, and this has been brought up various in the videos and actually people talking, is that, you know, we're a lot of the multinational, we're beholden to the stock market, beholden to people making money. Everything's intertwined in where it's going, whether it's our, you know, insurance policies or, you know, pensions are all tied into all these areas. And it's about, you know, can we decouple away from this and understand the changes, the way that these multinational companies can be run is a very, very tricky thing to do. And yeah, sometimes I've got a background in real estate finance and delving into economics as well and understanding the changes that need to happen. I mean, we've talked about this. It's not going to happen overnight, but people are looking at different ways to invest into things. Is it bonds are investing into green infrastructure? Can't remember which country it is in East Africa that's doing this, but, you know, investing into, you know, climate mitigation and adaptation strategies. Maybe Susan can pick up on this, or Yangbo as well. So seeing different ways that these models are going, investing heavily when we get cheap interest rates again, and actually investing into our green infrastructure, these kind of things, because it will allow us, if we're getting rid of the, you know, mitigating for heat island effects in cities, especially closer to the equator, you know, using less energy in our housing, less energy and carbon in our manufacturing processes as well. So it's understanding that people will still want to make money, but can they make it in a more equitable way?
One thing that exists in the world is something called derived wealth. It has been kind of squeezed out by fiat currency, but derived wealth means the value benefit that you have in a society that is created by giving. So mothers earn a lot of derived wealth when they are taking care of infants. We earn it when we take care of our old folks, when we help out a neighbor, when we stop by and you know, let somebody know that they've left their lights on their car. If your society has no capacity for derived wealth, then you are impoverished even if you have a lot of capital, because this is a whole world of value. And so capturing, understanding, creating, and applauding derived wealth, these are sort of things that I think are natural to people. They definitely exist in Indigenous communities. And when I hear you say greed, what I really think I'm hearing is the focus only on the fiat currency as a marker of value. And therefore, you're going to always never have enough. You're going to always crave more, when what you're really missing is the derived wealth, the good that you do just because, and your capacity to do that good. So there's a philosophical twist.
That's really interesting, because one of the things in Japan, what they're doing with EVs is actually you plug your car in overnight, and it takes the, it acts as part of the network to store energy. Now, and it does over a very, very slight of the life cycle of the battery technology decrease its lifespan, but only very slight. Will we be able to see that in the Western world? Would people be benefiting the greater good by doing that, or would it be a case of, is there then somebody just thinking, why are the energy companies not giving everybody electric cars for free to help balance out the network? Sorry, that's a tough one, but yeah.
And I also enjoy that we have so many comments, that it is a debate in the chat, and including our esteemed speakers, you are adding your own views to the comment. And this is just awesome, because this way we can debate almost like in a face-to-face fashion in real life. And this is what we can do together. So who wants to go next? I will repeat the question, because this is very, very important in my view. How do you see everyone should answer this, because I'm super curious. The biggest impediment and the first thing that should be removed to solve the climate SDG?
Biggest impediment. Woo. I think it's imbalance. That'd be my one-word answer: imbalance. I've done a lot of research studying people in what you might call indigenous communities, from the South Pacific, the Americas, Maldives, and here in Orkney as well. And what I observe in a culture that is permanent, that's what indigenous means, is that you're there, and that's quite different from that you're a colonizer or you're being colonized. You're indigenous. And what I see is that in all of the value systems, the manners, the things that matter, it's all about balance, weighing up one thing against another thing. And the way of the people is the balance itself, not choosing a particular thing, or it's the balance itself. So just that one thing, if we Westerners could understand balance, that wealth growth forever, it's out of balance. Where's the balance?
And by the way, because your thesis is, and through transition engineering, is that we need to reduce the energy usage. It's just too high. And this is our future. But that doesn't need to mean scarcity and something scary that people just put their heads in the sand and that's it. I don't care. And I don't care about the future generation. It's just too hard. It doesn't need to be something painful. We have the innovation. Do you think that if we find the common story to share about reducing energy consumption, it can be a good thing? We could move things further, easier.
Yeah, I do think there was a really good documentary by the chap who did Helvetica. And in it, they showcase a street, gamifying it, their energy use, and they had a graphic artist creating their energy reduction in the street. There's a building in the next city, Leeds, near me, and they have that. You can gamify and try and reduce it against your other tenants in there. And I do think this gamification and cities competing against each other, neighbors. There's somebody I know who does this in LA, and she flies drones over, and you can actually then she gets neighbors to compete against each other to see who's reducing the excess heat coming off their houses. People like playing games, playing against their neighbors. Whether it's, I do think building that kind of little bits of competition in there, it's natural. We can't drum it out of our kids playing sports and giving everyone a sticker. Although stickers are fun, but doing this little bit of competing and see, right, who can reduce them off. The economists have got an impact platform where the companies are going to be doing this to look at life cycle analysis and energy uses as well. So having it, benchmarking, said that's a great thing as well, because future generations, my kids, the young adults are calling out. They're more aware of this, so they're wanting to see this transparency and the traceability and understanding where things are coming from, and not just being sold a bunch of lies, which we're getting told by certain companies, whether it's in fast fashion or other areas as well.
Yeah, global games, and that is a good solution, actually, in my view, with the metaverse and everything that comes up. If we can connect a global game that we find intriguing, interesting, and because we don't need the entire population to just want to do this, but enough to create that kind of tipping point, because everything starts with that, with just a condensed, united people who want the same thing. Yes, you heard the metaverse, Carlos.
Well, maybe.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Ahmed, also how you see clean tech solutions and impact entrepreneurship in this, and what have you identified as maybe the most effective strategy to foster a global ecosystem committed to have a sustainable change?
Well, yeah, definitely. Let's take the Netherlands as a good example. There are a lot of countries in the world doing better than the others, and a lot of countries are improving, and we see the technology is taking over in a lot of countries. Africa is also a good example. So coming back to the Netherlands, once the Dutch king pointed out, more and more comes down to the farmers and market gardeners. And so we ask a lot of them. We want this certainty that there is always enough food. We want high quality food. We want food that helps us to stay healthy. We want to protect the environment. We want to make efficient use of scarcity space, and we want our food to be affordable. Here is the question: how the Netherlands became the second biggest exporter of food in the world, despite being small and overcrowded. I always ask this question when I'm in Morocco. I said Morocco is 14 times the Netherlands. So more than half of the country's land area is used for agriculture. The country's greenhouses cover an area of more than, I have the numbers, 59 square kilometers. The goal to produce more food with less land and resources, that's because by 2050, Earth population will reach more than 10 billion. So the world needs us. And innovation and technology and innovation were one of the most important key players in here. The Netherlands is the second largest global exporter of food after the United States. So I'm saying this because the technology played a very important role here, and we had a national commitment. So if you want to do something like this, you have to have a national commitment. So these high-tech output measures began almost 20 years ago, when the Netherlands made a national commitment to sustainable agriculture with the goal of producing twice as much food using half as many resources. That one. And farmers have been keeping up with this goal. Many farmers have reduced their dependence on water as much as 90%, and they've reduced their most completely ended the use of chemical pesticides on planting greenhouses. So this national commitment is very, very important on the highest level, let's say strategic level. Second thing, as I mentioned, is to promote the global market needed at the moment is the largest market that we have is the clean technology. If we grow a new generation, want to make money. I mean, we can also say that. I remember when I was doing diversity and intercultural management as a business consultant, it was very hard to sell to the people that have to be more inclusive. As I said, sustainability, inclusion, diversity, we're always like kind of activism. But if you want to sell that and convince people to do so, so what we did, we went to the commercial guys at the banks, at the corporate industry, and we told them if you implement diversity and inclusion in your organization, you're going to make more money, and at the same time, you're going to have promote the equality, and at the same time, you want to have more innovation and creativity in the organization, and they will run for it. And the same thing now with the clean tech. If we tell the new generation, you want to be a startup, the world going to need you. There is money out there. There is a world that's expanding. They want to have solutions that are expendable, and the funding and the money's out there. A lot of investors I work with, they always tell me there is enough money. We need great entrepreneurs that want to save the world. And then we see that there are a lot of impact investors at the moment also working on this. So if we can match that, bring new ideas, using all the new technologies to save the world, you will find the money. You will find, and you have the national commitment. You will find the money. You will find the infrastructure in the country because you have national commitment, and we will create unicorns. We will create a great entrepreneurs with impact. So it's let's say it's not something that that we just want to do because the climate is everything. If we look into SDGs, we have 17. If you want to work on that, we need to create a new generation of entrepreneurs with impact. That's what I'm trying to emphasize, and that's why I believe that the way we train our startups, the way we train our future entrepreneurs, it's still traditional, and I think we have to shift all of the new generation towards the clean tech because there is the money and there is the biggest impact. I keep repeating this, of course, because I believe in that, and it's something that I think that will be the new wave of entrepreneurship in the world.
Yes, and this is such an important point. I will keep repeating the theme from Yuval Harari about the importance of stories. We have the power to create the story where we mind shift, because everything that we have today as humanity is based on a story we shared ourselves. And you can delete everything from hatred, from division, if the story is right and you have the right type of leadership. And again, technology, because you mentioned startups and technology startups are those who are bringing us into the future sooner because they are agile, because this is how they are thinking. Their mindset is, let's create a solution for a problem we have today. But with that said, we can think about it in a rapid pace, also considering the ethical aspects. And so here, Divya, for example, I'm very, very curious because the legal framework, it's important for us to not mess it up as much. And so if we are thinking climate action, what legal innovations or changes would you propose, if it would be up to you, to encourage the adoption of sustainable technologies and practices across industries across the world starting today?
Thank you. And it's a very big question. I don't know whether I'll be able to answer or not. You have put in a lot of burden on my head. But first, I would like to go back to culture. As Professor Susan said, if we adapt our culture properly, there is a possibility we'll have a better understanding, as in why we have to save our climate, why do we have to save the environment in entirety. Here since childhood, I've been hearing from my elderlies that there is a saying called Kshitijal Pavak Gagan Sameer Panchatattva se bana shareer. I'll explain. There are 5 elements that build our body, that is earth, soil, water, fire, sky, and air. All these combined, we believe that that's how our body or our everything is built around. So we actually try and use all of the elements every day, not only in form of praying, but staying more ethical, more moral, and try to be a little bit around it in order to be connected with that particular vibe which we feel from the environment itself. And now I said that, even though by profession I have different understanding, but what I've realized, if we start respecting the environment, it will respect us back. And that's something which I always keep on emphasizing, that we have to respect the whole area or a compartment which has been allocated to us, and try and at least make sure that our surroundings is clean, clear, and people, everyone from a child to a elderly, everyone has to contribute. The moment we have that consciousness in ourselves, we ourselves will start contributing to a better environment, to a better climate. Why I'm saying that is, unless we are that much confident of our consciousness being alive, will not be able to contribute. One person will be talking about one aspect, they will never think about the other aspect. Like it's said that do not use other people's space, do not infringe into privacy, do not do this. We have all the laws in place for that, but why don't we have laws of not misusing environment? There should be specific laws for that as well. In India, we have in our constitution to be careful about how we are using or misusing our environment. We are not supposed to be cutting trees for any reason, unless it is eminent that you have to build that infrastructure which is necessary for human growth as well. So that is something which we follow as a duty. Once we are compliant with our duties, there is a possibility we'll have a better surrounding. When that happens, if every block of people start doing the same thing, it will happen universally also. It's not only building technologies, building infrastructure, it's about mother nature. We have to treat her like mother or like parents for whom we care about so dearly. Environment is also providing us everything. It's actually providing us everything: air which we breathe and are alive, oxygen for that matter. It is providing food, it is providing everything and anything. We have built our houses also. So that is something which I wanted to put forward. uh, it may not be technically sound, but it is ethically and morally, I feel, is a little sound. And I feel like it should be inculcated in our younger generation also. I'm sorry, have I overshot the time? Sorry.
No worries. It's very important what you're saying. And the emotional aspect, individuality, it's important in the story, right? Because we cannot just write something about we need to do that because we need to do that. People don't, if they don't align emotionally and they are not connected, they don't feel it, that it's important, they won't do a thing. Or if they are too scared because everything is too dramatic and they think the apocalypse is coming, then again they will go into the freeze mode. So we need to find a beautiful balance between this. And let's just shift a little bit to heavy industries, because we have so many good questions. Hard to choose one, but I will choose them based on what was not discussed or answered. Maybe this is for you, Yang Bo. What innovative approaches can be adopted to decarbonize the heavy industries and the big polluters? And here we have petrochemicals and others listed, which are heavily reliant on fossil fuels. Do you have any innovative approach for this?
Well, so first to cover what was introduced, that the shift really has to be one that focuses a lot more on the upside, because again, people keep talking about greed and such, but really, if you dive down into what might look to be greed, it's probably a lot more likely to be fear, that generally, and again, it's part of human nature, people tend to be very risk averse, that if this is something they have been doing for decades, well, they may possibly, and in many cases rightfully, be very skeptical of why does this need to change? It has been working well for so long. It worked in the past. Why should we change it now if it's worked so well before? So it's really shifting the frame of focus on this is a way you can future-proof yourself. That, like, for example, if you were going back to, just as a counterfactual, if you went back to the 60s, that was when companies like Exxon and others, internally, they were well aware of the effects of climate change even then. And you can even argue counterfactually that had they acted on it then, they would even be more profitable today than would be then. Now, the question, if you were in that era, is you have a couple of cash cows already, and they may be sunset sectors or sunset industries, like those that really don't have much longer to last, but they're still generating a lot of cash for you. And then there's a whole other set of activities that are fast growing, they're fast emerging, they're fast maturing, yet you're not quite sure about them because you don't know, okay, that means I'm going to have to disrupt myself. I'm going to have to disrupt my whole organization. How would I go about this? So really raising the point of that this is something that is profitable, that this is something that you do. This actually delivers those rewards. It puts you in a much better position to weather, to adapt to shifts in the market. That is generally, especially amongst those who are very numbers driven or business minded, that can very easily be a winning argument right there. That's what one would use. And also and you can even extend this, it's not just to heavy industries, you can even extend it to things that are not exactly activities which the upside can capture. For example, most type of clean tech, it's pretty easy to do because if you were to invest in renewable energy or turning your own carbon emissions from waste product into valuable products, if that's what you do, then it's pretty easy to capture the upside from it. Now, there are certain situations in which there is going to be a lot of gains, a lot of upside, but no single actor could actually capture a significant enough share of the value in order to make it profitable on an organizational level. And hence my earlier comment to Carlos in the chat about taking a much broader view, taking a look at this whole concept of public sector balance sheets. It's actually already pretty well established as a concept. The International Monetary Fund had a whole 100-page plus comprehensive report about this back in 2018, and multiple groups have published on this topic since then. But to look at, is the value you are creating from a broader societal level, is it accumulative, as in you're adding to the public wealth, or is it depletive, that you're actually depleting capital stocks? For example, if you're just exporting fossil fuels without using them in any resource transformational processes, then chances are it's likely going to be, it should be more accurately counted as it's not value addition, but capital depletion right there. That's a way to start accounting for those things. And then also to the point of Carlos about regulations and such, well, yes, there's some things that may be lower cost, some things that may seem to be lower cost at first, but in the end, what you end up doing, and you don't even need to use any climate argument for this, you actually end up shifting financial liabilities over to the public sector, or even intertemporally over to future generations, say beyond 30 years, when you have to repair and or replace what you've built currently. So just overall, just to start focusing all of these various strands, that it's fundamentally, at the fundamental level, what one would have to frame. It's more a matter of less about all this talk about this. There's so many debates about growth, debates about prosperity and such. It's really a question of what degree and how. And this is something that the group behind the social progress, and that's the SPI, Social Progress Initiative, Michael Green, professor at Oxford, that his team have been developing. And what you can consider is that you have growth, you can be growing wealth, you can be growing incomes. Now, with that growth, what one ought to consider is, are you improving any human development indicators? It could be economic, it could be social, it could be environmental, any of these. Because if you're growing and you're not improving in terms of human development, it's just wasted growth right there. It's wasted growth. Whereas
I truly love the improvement aspect, and it's a good distinction. And here I would want to shift a little bit, because Susan just mentioned we should call everything shift tech, and she also, because she has a lab, right, the transition engineering lab, you invented something new. So is this related to a question I wanted to address you about? Because we have the potential of renewable energy, and you went through all. You studied, explored, researched. What specific innovation do you see as a game changer for rapidly transitioning global energy systems? Is this related to your new invention somehow?
No, the new invention last week was about, well, it's for not a company, the National Health Service, the NHS in Scotland. They asked us to do a project around their food service in their hospitals because they felt it wasn't sustainable, right? I mean, think about it. No, it wouldn't be. From how the food comes in to, where the waste goes out. It's not sustainable. Now, it is nutritious for sure. And it works, and it's affordable, and they get it in, and it all works, but it's not sustainable. So the invention, I think I'll call it a net or a web or we already use these words for the internet, but the ability of the food service to design and carry out a shift project to a net zero version of itself requires information that doesn't currently exist. And so we want to build that information web, and it's not a one flow information at all. It's a web that you see in a sustainable society. It's a web of give and take, push, pull. I know what you need, therefore I can work to provide that. And so 100 years from now, we will have that information as part of how we do things. We've broken it down because we don't need it. We have oil and electricity. But in order to design and build our transition to the sustainable system, we need a information web. What's the word for mycelium? That's what we need. We need like a mycelium network to communicate things between different users. So we're working on the design of this, which would be, we have local production capacity. Probably it's not being used for that anymore. It's being used for bulk commodities that go into the supermarket system. Well, we know that our crabs that come out of our ocean go to China. So what is the local production capacity? You'd have to ask the farmers. So the platform, the web, has to have a way for them to put in things that they know they could produce. And then the nutrition that's paramount. The people in the hospital get a nutritious, balanced meal. So the meal planner needs to be able to put in what they need. And then the food waste that's produced needs to have a agricultural feedback loop. It needs to go somewhere back onto the farm. And so it's got a geospatial component, and it has to have these inputs, voluntary inputs of information, which I put that in because then it will help me to understand what it is that I can do and how that will connect up to a stable interaction. So maybe you tech people can tell me what that kind of a system would be called. I call it the Taylor Swift system.
Yeah, this is very interesting because it's very related to our LLM and large language models that could unite the collective information. And I know that in one of your talks, you were discussing that, okay, we don't have centralized information, reliable information to circulate in real time, because this would be a game changer for everyone to align on the newest technologies. And I know that there are some labs around the world that they are doing this, but still they don't have accurate, real-time, comprehensive information from around the world. And this could be something that we also tackled, and then we are considering to have a large-scale project inside Tech Leadership Lab, just because it's so crucial. And now,
well, I think we be careful about large scale. I think that the best model I've found out of the actual kind of communication system, maybe call it a navigator that we're talking about, is Google Map, right? I do not need all of the global information when I want to find out how do I get to a place that sells vitamins in Glasgow. I just don't. I need to tell the system what I'm looking for, and people who might have that need to tell it what they've got. And so the piece that we need is very, very distinct. And that the sort of miracle of Google Maps is that self-curated, shared information to get navigation help that I need. Yeah. And so we
where AI can help
differently then.
Yeah, there's different ways of looking at that, because the advanced version is you look at traceability and transparency in blockchain, but at the beginning, a lot of food all the way back to fishing communities will falsify it. So they're now looking, the Lloyd's Register Foundation a number of years ago look at DNA marking of food, but again, that's at global supply chain level for your big multinationals. But I mean, a few years ago, we mapped out these kind of initiatives in Yorkshire, because there's a company called the Excess Materials Exchange in the Netherlands that are doing this for industrial waste, and this all ties into kind of the circular bioeconomy, if it's called now. So it's about understanding one waste as a resource. So instead of just putting stuff into composting industrial level, what resources can you take out? Because what you're finding now is a lot of food retailers are giving away their food to cooperatives to then distribute, but it looks great to the food retailers because it's off their basically balance sheet, and it looks like they're giving it all away, and then it's the cooperatives that are then having to give it out to the general public, but not everything then makes it to the general public as well. So there's that issue of actually knowing where things end up, and it's doing good instead of actually being good. You've got things like Too Good To Go, and all these different apps really exploring this. So Susan, I'm happy to talk to you about some of the stuff like this. There's even a restaurant in London that it's called a Zero Waste Restaurant. So they do seasonal stuff. They've even done invasive species only on their menus.
Yeah. Okay. So you can imagine we have 6 minutes. Absolutely crazy, because we have so many things to tackle. I suggest the following: a couple of extra clarifying questions will be sent to you in order to distill and specify some conclusions based on our panel, and that we can put in our consensus document. Also, every one of you are invited to our special weekly shows where we can go in details. And I already see matchmaking between you and other panelists for combining what you're doing with other disciplinary aspects like tech, like other startups who are doing. And I already identified at least 3 matches in this room. So be prepared to go to the next level after this and be in real time discussing how you, together with someone else, can create the next step in solving the climate SDG.
If I be allowed just for 30 seconds, that's it.
Yes, for sure. I have a last
Thank you so
question
much.
as well.
Sorry for interrupting, but I couldn't stop myself from the talk about consumerism and the way businesses are being built on data, because that is something which is one of my favorite areas. Other than that, it is infringing on a lot of brain related data, and it is impacting our neuro thoughts, neuro rights. It is heavily depending on the kind of way we are sharing that data with the world. Even if we want a specific area to be read by the GPS or by Google or any app whatsoever, still whatever they are doing through that data, and that data is something which is impacting our lives heavily. So I just wanted to bring this point here where we talk about brain rights and how the consumerism or the kind of way consumers are being manipulated. Wanted to bring it here because that is also a part of ethical analysis when we are talking about such an important topic related to climate, AI, and humanity. Thank you.
And you just mentioned that you wrote a chapter in the book, Advances in Social Neuroscience, Emotional AI and Human AI, Interactions Across Social Networking chapter. It's Human AI. Yeah, ethical studies with Marcus. Marcus Krebs from Human AI Institute, and he was also involved in the new legislation, legal aspects from the EU. And so we are happy to go to the next level. Last question to all of you. What would be your conclusion and maybe the last call to action for the world and for our viewers? What should they take out of our talk today, if one thing alone?
I'll go first. Don't get stuck on the problems. Don't get stuck. Move on. Find a way to move on. There's lots of ways. Look up transition engineering if you want. That most of 20 years of research is on how to get unstuck from this loop, infinite do loop stories we tell ourselves about why we can't do anything.
I just love that. Don't get stuck. Get out. Break out from your comfort zone. Break that box. Get out of it and see the world the way you want to see it, not the way you think it is and cannot be changed. Awesome. Who's next?
I'll go. I saw this on a sticker actually once when I was chairing a panel on responsible businesses, and it said, "It's not time to innovate; it's time to get shit done." Sorry for swearing, but it was just it's still to the point now.
We are not on the national television. We don't have censorship. We have opinions, human-like discussions. Yeah. Thank you. Who wants to go next?
I'll say that. Make humanity the reality, and we'll all be saved.
Thank you. Yeah. I just want to add here how hard it would be to just envision that starting tomorrow when I wake up, I will just look at everyone as me, as part of humanity, one species. And I just want to be happy. I just want to have nice discussions, to treat everyone okay, to have the resources I need and help out each other. Because if we don't have that kind of fulfillment inside us, then everything goes to hell. I mean, we will do harm when we are unhappy, when we are unfulfilled, when we lack the basic needs of ours. But once you are happy and you can consider the other as important as you, everything shifts and your action can shift. We could change everything in one day if we would decide collectively that tomorrow I wake up and I will do things differently. It will be hard at the beginning, but it is the new story and it is based on our decision.
Ahmed, you had something you wanted to say before I go. Ahmed, go ahead.
And we all go, yeah. Okay. You're muted, but we can unmute you if you want.
Yeah, unmute Ahmed. You're muted.
Yes. Ahmed, you need to unmute yourself alone. I cannot do that. I tried. Oh. Try again. Try again to unmute yourself.
Okay, good.
Good.
Technology, clean tech. For me, it's I think it's important to start with the kids and to start from the house to raise a new generation of change agents. And change agents for me are also entrepreneurs. We need to start with the mini entrepreneurship from schools to find solutions for the for the for the climate change. We all have mobile phones. In one house, you could have you can have iPad, smart TV, and all that. All that technology around you, and we don't use it. Where maybe 1% is used, just watching and playing. If we can use all the technology around us from the house for a better for a better society, for better change, I think we will achieve more than that. So I would say start young, start smart, and the same time when you start young and smart, you will implement the whole philosophy of climate change in the heads of the kids, and not just being revolutionary, but also by creating something that you're gonna love and yeah, and make a good living out of it to be happy, as you mentioned, Christina. You want to be happy? There are a lot of things that are going to make you happy.
Thank you, Ahmed. Great
You're welcome.
message.
Yeah.
Yangpo.
And then finally, to wrap here, again, just a keyword I mentioned a few times in the chat already, it's interpretation. Like how are we handling the information that already exists? Because chances are that every issue we had discussed here, whether today or for years or decades, as many of us are in position right now, have already been demonstrated, been solved, been proven by someone somewhere in the world. And then the question now is, rather than the treat, like so often we're tempted to treat these challenges as puzzles, it's much more useful, whereas you're looking for additional pieces, like what other pieces you find, whereas what is a more accurate way of framing the climate challenge or any challenge around the 17 Sustainable Development Goals or these or this whole poly crisis we're dealing with here is to treat this whole issue as a mystery, as in the information's there, like do you actually have an appropriate interpretation for it, and are you actually able to unsilo or break through those silos that otherwise inhibit access to information, inhibit sharing it. And this even extends to things like rules and such. During the intermission, there was discussion about what rules we have set and such. Again, in most cases, it's likely not the rules themselves that are the issue. It's more so interpretations that have gone unquestioned for years and in many cases even decades. So if you actually look at them, figure out what can you do under the existing framework that very few are doing because they've been under received interpretations of it, and how can you do that even slightly differently, because even doing things slightly differently could actually have a very significant impact.
Mm-hmm. And I will take the interpretation aspect because, yes, it's again part of human nature. And it's time for us to write the right type of story. This was an amazing panel. It won't stop here. We are all about action with Tech Leadership Lab. So don't believe that we just talked here. No. We are making sure that actions are taken, but first to distill the right type of information. You were absolutely awesome, all of you. Thank you so much for being here with us today. I loved every little single contribution because you brought with different perspectives and skill sets to the table the angles we need to tackle to solve the climate SDG. And for this reason, thank you for all your work you're doing for humanity. This is so precious. You are in the right type of industries that are considering our future. And for that reason alone, you truly deserve a big congratulation, and we are welcoming you back every time you want to come to join us. And we will wrap up with a break of 2 hours. We will be back with our second panel, that is Impactful Tech, and we will have a pitching session with 6 amazing entrepreneurs and innovations that can have an impactful change on the world in fighting the climate SDG, in solving, not fighting. We don't want this kind of wording. In solving the climate SDG. And so get back, because we will monitor the chat and we are very interested in what you have to say to have a good enough conclusion for what's next. Thank you, everyone. Have a wonderful day, and see you in 2 hours.
Thank you.
In a world yearning for change, there exists a community of visionaries and innovators, united by a common goal to solve Earth's biggest challenges. From climate action to quality education, we're tackling all 17 Sustainable Development Goals reassembled as 10. We embody sustainability, unity, and empathy. Our character and reliability shine as beacons of hope. As role models for future generations, we're building a world where wisdom and consciousness rise, harmonizing life with nature and all species. Join us. Together, let's create a balanced, sustainable future for all.